What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of Lambgoat's Vanflip podcast. This week I'm joined by Brett Campbell of the Arkansas doom metal sludge droney band PALLBEARER. Welcome to the show, Brett. How you doing today, man?
Pretty good, man.
Awesome. You guys got a new record coming out this week, but this episode will probably come out. Actually, it'll come out this week. So yeah, Friday you have a new record coming out. Mind Burns Alive, and that's coming off of Nuclear Blast. So what can fans expect? Obviously, there's been some singles that you've kind of shared, but what can fans expect outside of those pair of singles that you've already released?
Absolutely nothing else. It's exactly no. It's a it's a PALLBEARER record, so it sounds like PALLBEARER, but there's some different takes on that style. I guess there's more expansive, quieter, cleaner moments on this album than we've done in the past. It's also got some of the heaviest shit we've ever done. So I guess overall it's more dynamic. There's more peaks and valleys. So yeah.
One thing I did notice on Endless Place, your longer of the two singles that you released in the last month or so, was you did a collaboration with a saxophonist, and that was quite a pleasant surprise in the middle of the track or later into the later part of the track. Saxophone is one of those instruments that you can basically use endlessly in many genres, and it definitely fits within that space in Endless Place. So how did that even come about?
Man, it was spontaneous. Like we were just about done with the album, like entirely recording it. We'd cracked everything, and the four of us were at a bar in our neighborhood. We live all like in the same neighborhood, pretty much. And
Are you guys still in Arkansas?
yeah, we're in North Little Rock now,
Okay.
so we've moved across the river, same city, pretty much. Um, so yeah, we were just hanging out, having some beers, and somebody suggested like, what if we got Norman, who's the guy that did the sax solo? So it's like, what if we got Norman to do a sax solo on Endless Place? And we were just kind of like, shit, what if we did?
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of made sense. And so he came in, I don't know, a few days later and just nailed it. We put a bunch of effects on it and made it weird, weirder. And yeah, it just dropped right in and it made sense. It was a very spontaneous, idea, but as soon as it was vocalized, we just like, fuck yeah. Sometimes you just know.
Mm.
And it seemed like the right thing to do.
Now you've been a band for almost 20 years. Why all of a sudden did you decide to like throw in a little saxophone in there?
Dude, that's a good question. I really wish I knew. Like, of everyone in the band, I've been the most hesitant to have any guest musicians. Like, the idea's been floated before, but it's always people like when we were making our previous album, Forgotten Days. Like, we worked with a producer, Randall Dunn, who like knows a bunch of people, way more famous people than us, and he's like, what if we got so and so to do like a guitar solo? And I'm just like, I want to play the solo.
Yeah.
Like, we've already got two guitarists. We don't need another guitarist.
It's also a little
So
different with like something that you already have in the band.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like, I mean, it's cool, and he was suggesting guitar players who are probably better than me, but it's like, I want to play it,
Yeah.
But although I used to play saxophone when I was in like high school. I was in the band and shit, but was never very good, and I haven't really kept up with it. And Norman is good, so he brought something to the band that none of the rest of us could do. So, and it felt really appropriate to that song, and I don't know, it just like instantly elevated it. Like,
Yeah.
I think the song was cool already, and it works without the sax, but like it it just adds kind of a new layer of like psychedelia that wasn't there before. So
I definitely
anything could get weirder.
I'll agree to that. Just because in casual listening to the new songs as well as uh, your back catalog in preparation for all this for the last week or so. Uh, when the first time I did hear the new single, I mean, obviously we posted it in the last week or so, but or whenever we did, I can't remember exactly when it came out, but it's relatively new in the last month and within the last month. But I remember listening to it, and then my attention just like went directly to like, hey, what is that? Am I still listening to the
Uh-huh.
same band? You know what I mean? And I was like, damn, that is really cool. So like, even though that's a very long song, may not be long in Paul Bearer world, but in like my world where I'm listening to like hardcore and metal, there's a couple songs that are minute long, and there's a couple songs that are like
Uh-huh.
15 minutes long. So, in that, it definitely grabbed my attention, and it was a very nice addition. And like you said, it does flow and fit in that space very well. I'd be interested to know what it sounds like without it. But when you play live, I don't know if you've had to have this happen yet or not, but will that be something that's left off of the live show, or is that something that's going to be triggered by somebody else or a drum, drum button or something along the back, like a backing track or something like that you're going to have in your live shows?
Well, we've played the song live several times, like over the last year or so. Basically, as soon as we finished how it sounded, like finalized it, we incorporated it into our sets because it's
It's
more
fun.
fun to play new
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I understand.
And well, we're about to go on the road with this band Resin, who has a saxophone player coincidentally in their band. So we asked them if they'd play a solo. So at least for this first leg of the U.S. tour, we're going to have someone playing the solo there. And then I think probably what would be fun to do in the future, if people are willing to do it, is like have people in other bands come up and I mean, even if they're most bands don't have a saxophone player that at least that we tour with. Nor not really touring the jazz circuit yet. Um, but can play guitar solo or a fucking whistle solo, anything, just
Yeah.
get somebody up there and make some noise during that part. It'd be cool. Have somebody
Um,
up
and
from a guest.
yeah, and you're doing is Resin going to be part of the? I know you have a listening party scheduled this week. Are they going to help you out with that? Or are you going to have the actual saxophonist? I don't know. He may not live with you or in that same area, but are you going to have him at the listening party? I don't know if you're going to be playing at the listening party either, but
Yeah, we're not playing. Joe and my other band, Sports, it's part of this. It's part of this festival that goes on here every year in Little Rock called Mutants of the Monster. The CT from Wake puts on. So it's like a listening party in which we're just going to play the album, and then this band Or playing. It's like Or, like and Or. Um, and Norman, the saxophonist, is in that band, so he's playing.
mm,
So it's Or this band after that called Deep Staria Enigmatico, which is like a kind of like a free jazz band, and then Sports, which is Joe and my band, which is like falling into a black hole, like just nightmare space music. Um, so yeah, Norman will be there, but yeah, it's just a
not performing.
playback, no
Yeah.
no performance.
I did try to look up some sports stuff, but I think other bands over the last 40 years have also used the same the same names. So it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
hard to find that. But I do love the
All,
name.
all we ever had was a MySpace, and we put out some like tapes, which who fucking knows? I mean, I still have a couple of them. I don't even think I have everything we put out. If we can find the files anywhere from 2005. We were really only super active from like 2005 to 2007.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's going to be kind of tough to find that stuff. But if we do, I'll start a band camp, eventually,
Maybe you can get logged back into
so
that
people can hear
MySpace.
it.
Yeah, maybe just log back into
Yeah,
the MySpace if Tom hasn't
yeah,
deleted everything.
yeah, for real. I'm gonna hit up Tom. I mean, he was a close friend.
Yeah, he was everyone's top closest friend.
Yeah,
Yeah, we all were very tight, and then he ghosted us after he sold it all. But so so you guys have like a busy
got too
summer.
good for us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you got paid. You know what I mean? You got bought
Yeah,
out and went to an island somewhere, which you and
yeah,
I probably would do the same. We're not judging.
hell yeah, in
Um,
a heartbeat.
yeah. So you guys have like a kind of a busy summer booked for you, and I know today you just kind of like announced some other dates with you're going to Europe with Baroness and Graveyard. So, but before that, you're touring all summer long, like you said, with Resin as part of that Inter Arma and Wake as well. Do you guys just like to keep on the just like keep a lot of stuff on the books, or do you prefer touring or like staying home writing music?
I prefer writing music, just because I I don't know, I can sleep like ever. Touring is a lot, and especially now, like before the pandemic, we had gotten big enough where we were able to tour in like the bandwagon type things, kind of like an
Yeah, yeah.
RV. So there's like bunks and shit in there, and a refrigerator, so you could buy food and actually eat for like a reasonable amount of money. So like some of some of the like the basics that you expect from life, you're able to bring on the road. Um, but now, like all that like after the pandemic, all that shit's like five times as expensive.
Yep.
So we're back to like Sprinterland. So it's going to be touring. It's going to be more exhausting than it was. So yeah, I mean, touring's fun and that you get to see a bunch of friends and stuff around the world, and performing the songs for people is always a blast. Like we spend so much time on these songs, and
Yeah.
I'm also really excited to like I've been working on this like crazy intricate like guitar, excuse me, like setup that
Mm.
I'm really excited about playing live. So I am pretty excited about this tour. But in a general sense, I like writing more because it's coming up with something new. Like
Yeah.
live, you're always like recreating something. Like when you're writing, it's open ended.
I'm going to try to sound like I know what the hell I'm talking about when you go over your guitar setup. But what's new and exciting about this new guitar setup rig situation that you're going to be playing?
It's fucking stupid. It's stupid. So I'm like I've been over the last couple of tours, I've been using two amps. Um, one like dry with the channel switch, so it's like clean and distorted, and then a second amp, which is my like effects return. So that's pretty normal, like a wet dry setup.
Hmm.
But then I also use that what sometimes the wet amp as a just like a blend. So it will come in instead of stacking gain on that one amp, I'll just blend in this other amp with a different EQ. And so I started brainstorming because I try to recreate the sounds of our records as much as I can live. And I've been using a Line 6 Helix for the last few years, um, not as the amp modeler, but just as a sophisticated multi effects unit,
Right, right, right.
because it allows for insane routing and um, like the snapshots where you can change any number of parameters with one button. Like you just pre-program, it'd be like something that'd be impossible to do otherwise. Like turning the knobs on a pedal,
Right,
completely
right, right.
changing the settings. I mean, you can do that with some MIDI enabled pedals, but it's just this is really fast uh, and easy to work with, and it sounds great. So this seems like the best way to do it. But now I've incorporated a third amp into the equation. So like my original idea was just bring it in for solos and just have like this lead that comes out over everything because our leads are so prominent, and I felt like it would help it just jump out over everything. So yes, it worked and it sounds fucking awesome. And but then I kept experimenting with it, and so I'm like, what if I just use it as another blend? So now I've got like my baseline sound, another blend, and a third blend, and any combination of those three amps I can choose to do. And I also started using it as like two parallel effects, uh, effects chains. So I'd still have my dry, and then two different, you know, effects amps. So offers like it offers an insane degree of flexibility that it's a rabbit hole. I'll be probably falling down, and hopefully.
Does
The
it
audience will be too.
yeah, does it leave any room sonically for like the other guitar player or bassist?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh, the weird thing is, so for the main like effects one, I still have yet to really try this. I'm gonna try it at a show and then bring something else in case it doesn't work. But I've been using like a Fender Champ, which is a 5 watt amp with an 8 inch speaker, and it's a tiny like it's a bedroom amp, but something about the EQ curve of it just sits right in because my other amp is like a Mad amp with the 100 watt Mad amp with a 412, a very very high powered amp, and but somehow this champ just like the EQ it the EQ knobs do virtually nothing, so it just has a sound, and but that sound just sounds fucking awesome with the blended together. So yeah, I'm very careful not to step on the other like the bass and other guitar.
Yeah.
We all have very distinctly different like sounds.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask, like, because you were talking about your bassy tones and whatnot. I was curious because obviously you do have a bass player in the group, so I was wondering how that would work and where it sits and stuff like that within the mix live. You know?
Yeah, I meant bass line as in BASE, like my
Ah, gotcha.
like yeah, like my starting point, my zeroed tone, and then like then I can bring in all these different elements as needed for the song.
Right. It's not off the record or off the map for a guitar like guitarists to
No,
have bass because there are bands without bassists that use those effects with the pedals also to kind of like create a bass line, so to speak. So
oh for
I
sure,
just didn't know if you
yeah for
guys were
sure.
like sword fighting back and forth for the space and
Not at this point. Like yeah, I'm sure at some point in our existence as a band we were, but yeah, we've gotten. I don't really run a super bassy guitar sound. I just want clarity. That's the most. I don't really use that much gain either,
Mm,
which is why using these like secondary amps to bring in like to make it heavier if it needs to get heavier instead of stacking more gain, bringing in another amp with like a still pretty medium amount of gain makes it sound heavier but not more saturated. So you get volume, you get a wider EQ spectrum, like you get more harmonic content, and but you don't get the gooey smushiness and lack of string clarity that you would get from just kicking on more gain.
mm.
So like for us, like we use such big chords oftentimes, and arpeggios and kind of complex movements in our songwriting. So like string clarity and just overall clarity is like extremely important. So this is kind of a solution I found to still being able to seem like stupid heavy and thick, but like not just stacking on more fuzz.
Yeah. um like what when you're writing, like especially for like maybe this newer record, obviously, when do you know like the song is finished, not like completely like every like not like everything is completely done with the song, but how do you know like, okay, this one is going to be this length and this one's going to be this length or whatnot? Like what parameters do you guys set as a band, or if any, to where you're like, okay, well, this is a 10.5 minute long song. Are you worried that, especially in like this day and age, with like attention spans is dwindling down to almost nothing? Are you worried about that ever? And like, how do you guys, go ahead and select the length, like how long stuff some things will be?
It's when it feels done. Like
Yeah.
we don't really shoot for honestly, we try to make the songs as short as possible. Like we cut all the fat. Like if there's something that feels like it goes on for too long, then it gets cut. And if it ends up being a weird number of repeats, it's like, oh, now it's only 3 repeats or whatever. Fine, whatever. Like that's what it needed to be. If it needs to be fucking 16 repeats, then it will. That's never really happened, but like it could in theory. It's really just about like if it feels right. When we listen back to the song, like we'll record it a jam or like make a demo, and it's just like, well, does it get boring? Well, then cut this part. Does it feel incomplete? Then what does it need? Like you just add as needed and subtract as needed until it feels like a complete song.
This is your third record with Nuclear Blast, am I correct?
Yes, Heartless was a Nuclear Blast and Profound Lore co-release.
Okay, okay. So technically two and a half.
Yeah.
How do you like being with Nuclear Blast, and like how did you guys transition from Profound Lore to Nuclear Blast? Was it kind of like a deal through Profound Lore? Like obviously you did the co-release, so was there like a transitional period where they just handed you off to them kind of situation?
It was kind of just a arrangement of convenient. Well, not really convenience. What happened was around the time after our second album, fans in Europe were not able to get our records because uh, Profound Lore is a one man operation pretty much, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a pretty big for like a an underground label, but it doesn't have the reach of a Nuclear Blast,
No, of course, yeah, of course not.
metaphorically or literally.
Right.
Um, um, oh shit! Thank you. Oh, my girlfriend just brought me a milkshake.
Hell yeah! What kind?
Um,
What kind of milkshake?
I, I don't know what kind of milkshake is it. Butterfinger. All right,
All
all
right, all
right.
right.
Get my fingers all buttery. All right, but so what happened was Chris Bruni, the guy that runs Profound Lore, he got in touch, or I guess made a deal with Nuclear Blast to release it outside of the U.S. or outside of North America.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was just because people were paying, 50 euros for a record and then 50 euros in shipping when they could even get it. And no one should ever pay that much just to buy. I mean, I fucking wouldn't.
Yeah,
So,
no.
like,
So
that's
kudos to those
ridiculous.
people. Yeah, kudos to those fans.
Yeah.
How? Why was that? Just because obviously Profound didn't have like the distribution at the time for overseas in this time.
Didn't have the distribution, and we were the biggest band on Profound Lore, and the demand was too high for Chris to keep up the printing, like
Mm.
to keep the record in stores, including in North America. Like people, he just couldn't keep up with the demand
Um,
at the time. I don't know. He might have expanded now, but
I think
that
he's
was
doing a little. Yeah, I think obviously that was almost a decade ago. So
mm.
yeah, definitely things have improved or grown or done, some things over the time. How do you guys? Are you guys looking forward to going to Europe with Baroness and Graveyard?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, man. We've toured and or played many shows with Baroness over the years,
I would
and
assume so. Yeah.
yeah, they invited us to do their first show back after the bus crash all those years ago and stuff, which I thought was a really cool, you know, gesture for them. We didn't know each other at the time really, and yeah, we're real good friends with them, and that's always a lot of fun to play with them. And we all are fans of Graveyard. I don't know those guys personally, but I like the band, so I like their music. So I think it should be fun.
Yeah, my lady friend was quite upset when she found out. She was reading the tour dates and or she saw the post I think yesterday or today or whatnot. Got very excited and then got very upset that all of those bands were playing in Europe because they are very those are very big bands for her. She's a big fan of you guys, Baroness, and she'd like to see Graveyard too. So she was bummed, but oh well. Maybe we can get you all on the
How
same
it
tour
goes.
here.
Yeah, it would be cool. Redo it, do it over here. Yeah, why not?
How does one in like the early 2000 aughts get into this kind of like doom metal sound? Like, what got you down the rabbit hole?
The internet. I mean, I'm from like suburban Arkansas, I discovered shit through the internet or reading metal magazines back when those were a thing. Just looking at random CDs in the store and be like, oh, this looks cool. Like, buy it at random. Like, I don't fucking know. Or download a single song on Napster. Like, that's what got me started. And then whenever I started actually like discovering the scene, like of the local scene here in Arkansas, I was already a fan of Doom, but like stuff like the old Anathema or My Dying Bride,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of like kind of gothic European sort of thing. I So I started going to shows here in in Little Rock, which is 20 minutes from where I grew up. And yeah, and then I found like Deadbird and Wake and you know bands like Weed Eater and I Hate God, kind of sludgy bands that would come through. And this is the early 2000s, and there was still like a ton of sludge bands that would
Hmm.
come up.
Well, plus
You
you're
know, we're
also like in
semi
that you're in that area, like right north of like Louisiana, where all that stuff's kind of bubbling up. So yeah, I could see that just spilling over into Arkansas.
100%. Yeah, like they're close to like a sister scene as there is. Like a lot of the Louisiana folks come up for shows, and vice
What?
versa will come down
How
here.
long's
So
the drive for that?
Canola, it's like 8 hours, but
Yeah.
there's like Shreveport's like 2.5 hours away.
Hmm.
You know, and there's a pretty decent Shreveport scene. It comes and goes, much like the Little Rock scene. It
Whereas
has its ups and downs.
everywhere else goes comes and goes. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we're pretty tight with that scene in a lot of ways.
What's the Little Rock scene like currently?
It's really thriving.
And
The heavy
not
music
just
scene
for
is
you
thriving.
guys like sound, but like just like alternative music in general that metal or hardcore or anything like that in that vein.
For our sound, not really a lot. Like there's a few doom bands. Um, right now it's like mostly death metal and hardcore. It's really popping off, like kind of led by the like Terminal Nation is
Hmm.
probably the most influential band going right now for our local scene. And um, there's a lot of like grind and punk, like hardcore bands going on. Like it's new bands every day. It's tons of young kids and like you know older people as well. Like I guess like Terminal Nation's on the older side of it. They're still like early mid 30s. They're still relatively young, but like there's like kids. You'll see X's on hands, and it's not because they're straight edge. It
Hmm.
shows, which is awesome because that's the sign of a thriving scene. But it's really, you can go to a show that's all local bands on a Tuesday, and it's fucking packed to the back of the house, which is more than I can say it's been like for a very long time here. It's as healthy as I've ever seen the scene. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. We are here. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and it's kind of like an ebb and flow situation here, depending on like venue availability. I would assume we get venues, but then one thing leads to another, and they're not a venue anymore. Or they get capped, or something happens, insurance or whatever, or they go under, so to speak. And
Hmm.
we're kind of held hostage by that. But we are a rather big community land wise. We also are a big community in with music too. We have a lot of hardcore and metal stuff that come from here, but it just seems like it's an ebb and flow situation, and I'd like it to be more consistent. But I do like to touch base on like all the little scenes all over the world, because obviously like people might think of Little Rock, Arkansas as not like a beacon or a place where a lot of this style of music goes around or goes down. So I like to shed a little light on what's going on in that little area. So it's good to hear that you got some stuff bubbling up.
Yeah, it rules. I mean, I think bands there's like varying degrees of awareness of like how cool it is here. Like it's like say it's not a huge scene, but it's a very like good scene. Like
Mm,
it's a very healthy, it's thriving. Despite I mean Little Rock's a tiny city, like so there is just a natural limitation on how much is going to be going on, especially in something as niche as hardcore or metal.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, bands that come through, even if they don't play to like as big of a room as they might in a bigger market, like they always have a good time. And so we try to urge people to come through on their way through going to like Dallas or whatever it is. Everyone comes through, but very few people stop. So it's like we urge people to, book a fucking show here. But I think Stan from Criminal Nation and some other folks in that kind of circle have really done a good job of getting the word out and like really fomenting like a regional um, scene that's like kind of tied in with like Missouri and Tennessee and local regional other micro scenes. And I've always tried to say shit about Arkansas in interviews, but they've really they've really done it. Like they've put the work in and get smaller bands that are just getting started, like that might not be trying that hard to get out of their hometown. They're like, come the fuck to Little Rock, and they do. So
Yeah.
it's cool.
It's hard sometimes to get those little smaller hardcore bands to do a little bit more. I we have a couple
Hmm.
bands here locally that are really good, and but they're in like one guy's in 8 bands, and they're all really good, but they're not really going out and doing much more than playing every now and then locally, which I wish, as far as like Jacksonville goes or the RR scene, it would, go out and, you know, advertise our scene and what it is and what's going on. But again, I guess you just have to come through. You have to be a resident here to find all that and hear all that. But
Yeah, that's kind of the way it is here too, man. It's like there's a handful of dudes who are in like every fucking band. Just don't know how they have time to do it.
yeah, would you want to be in a different band? And like, if so, what kind of sound would that band be like? Would it be adjacent to what you kind of are used to, or completely different?
Mark, the drummer and pallbearer, and I have been like flirting with starting like a apocalyptic hardcore band for several years. We had several songs. We've just never played a show. Like basically, like his hero was gone. Worship,
Hmm.
um, or just like maybe emphasis more on like the grindier elements of that. Um, because it's really different. Like pallbearer encompasses so much that it doesn't really leave me wanting for much else. But something like a grind band is very different. But I could still use kind of the same melodic sensibility I want, you know. So that's something I'd like to do at some point. Just play in a really fast band. And my friend just opened the door earlier. Like we're about to do practice for sports. We're playing a show this weekend, our first show in like years. So that's
Nice.
my other outlet. So as soon as I get off of here, I'm going to go set build the wall, as Donald Trump would say.
Yeah, yeah. I won't.
This one's out of amps.
We won't keep you too much longer. We just got 15-ish so minutes here. I got a couple
No, it's
more
all
for
good.
you. Got a couple more for you. But so like Mine Burns Alive, you said that you had written some of the songs, over a year ago. How long have you had the bulk of that material written and recorded for?
Uh, I mean, there were demos of these songs in like 2019. So
Because
in
you guys
some
go
capacity,
you go every 4 years. It seems like a 4 year album cycle. I don't know if that's something that you kind of like mentally try to do, and every 4 years just kind of do the thing. But obviously, if you're demoing songs in 2019, that kind of gets you around the same cycle. So
well, our first three are 2 years apart. So 2012, 2014, and then I guess 2017. So I guess there was 3 years. So yeah, two to 3 years. Um, but this one, like I said, the beginnings of the songs were there in 2019. We wrote them alongside the songs from our last album, but they were so different than that material. We just kind of like put them in a box and
mm,
just like we'll come back to these. And because while we were writing, there was two distinctly different types of songs, and they didn't really go together. Like these songs don't sound like the songs on Forgotten Days, and by separating them into like kind of the more progressive, um, nuanced songs that are on this album, and the really straightforward kind of raw sounds types of songs from Forgotten Days, it allowed us to focus more on those elements, and instead of kind of creating a mediocre blend of the two, like I think it would create kind of like a stylistic whiplash to put them on the same album.
mm,
So I think it made each album more pure in intent by separating them into two groups, and focusing on different production approaches, different,
right.
arrangement approaches,
Um,
etc.
and obviously dating back to 2019, that must mean you guys were doing some kind of writing or noodling during the shutdown and pandemic. So I would assume for a drone band that's has a very dreary sound and it's very somewhat emotional. A lot of that probably, a lot from the lockdown, COVID, and all that other stuff probably went into a lot of how it sounds or what lyrical content may be on this record. Is that safe to kind of assume, or
I fell down a modular synth hole for the entire uh, pandemic and stopped listening to music. Like all I was listening to was like for like I had to make myself start listening to music, like proper music again.
mm,
So it's still most of it predates the pandemic. By the time the pandemic started, I'm like, I don't know if I'll be dead tomorrow. I was drinking like two or three pitchers of margaritas a day and just getting buck wild
yeah,
and fucking jamming on synths like all day. Like that's all I did. I'd like gained like 25 pounds from drinking margaritas. So, and then I'd stopped drinking altogether and like went sober for like a while, and then I just start drinking again. I went through so many phases of my life over the course of like a year and a half,
yeah, yeah.
but
We
it was
all
kind
did.
of fucking awesome. I loved the pandemic.
Yeah, I didn't have a
I'm
bad
ready for another
time.
one.
I didn't. I don't know if I'm ready for another one, but I didn't have a horrible time like a lot of people did. I mean, granted, I don't know how it was in Little Rock, Arkansas, because the only thing I really know about Little Rock, Arkansas is Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. That's it. But
Mhm.
you know, in Florida, it was kind of like we shut down for like a week and a half, and then after that, it was like everything's back to normal for the most part. So it was kind of a cool vibe down here, until everyone started coming down here. But yeah, I could only imagine you getting down in that little synth K hole and then coming out like Robin Williams from Jumanji, just like, what
That's
year is it?
exactly. It was exactly like that.
But 25 pounds
Effective.
heavier
Yeah.
than you are now, or were,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, dude. It was. I was like, God damn, I got fucking fat. I looked at pictures of myself from then. I'm like, wow.
you're not the only
Yeah, it
one,
was.
Brett. So don't worry. You weren't the only
No,
one, Brett.
I feel like people either got shredded
Yeah.
or got fucking fat, and I definitely got fat.
Yeah, I was part of that group too. It is what it is, man.
Yeah, it is what it is. It was, it takes longer to get rid of it than
It's
especially when you're drinking a milkshake.
way less.
But
It's way less fun. Way less fun getting rid of it than it is putting it on. I'll give you that.
that's for fucking sure, dude.
It is-
But it was, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was like a extended vacation. It's the longest I've ever had of like nothing to do. I mean, make your own schedule, and of course, my schedule comprised entirely of drinking margaritas. So like, it was fucking great.
What's your favorite kind of margarita? What brand of margarita was it? Like, hopefully not one of those big buckets you just pour alcohol in, and it's like like the big mix that you get from the liquor store or something like that.
That's exactly what it was, but worse.
Ah,
We would just get like, I mean, the tequila was never any like I mean, let's just say we did it all at some point. I mean, sometimes it's just, lime and Grand Marnier or whatever, but other times we get the fucking like tube. You can get like it's basically like limeade, but it's like frozen, pre-frozen margarita mix.
hmm,
You stick it in a blender with some ice and then just dump a bunch of tequila in it and fucking fire it up. And
yeah,
it's like a, frozen slush, but just it gets you fat. I mean, drunk. Uh,
both.
but yeah, both. We were fucking pounding those things, pounding them like it was going out of like to the point where I'm like, I think my body was. I had like a yeast infection all over my body from too much sugar,
Yeah.
and it's hot in Arkansas, so like I started having like breakouts on my like legs and like ass and shit. And I'm just like my armpits.
Uh,
I was like, what the fuck is going on? I went to the doctor and they're like, yeah, you have like a yeast infection. I'm like, that's so cool. And it was
what have
from
you been
like all
doing?
the sugar.
I've been just slamming. I've been slamming margaritas every day.
Been butt chugging margaritas every 3 pitchers of margaritas every day.
Yeah. No, we
Yeah.
got in our liquor store. I mean, I don't know if they still have them, but in some of the liquor stores around here, we have these buckets that have this mix in it or something like that, and it's basically like, yeah, you just add a bottle of tequila, shake it up, and then it's got a little spigot on there. That's how you know it's
Hmm.
top quality shit. So
Hmm.
has a spigot on it. So, what kind of flavor is your go-to? Is it just the regular green lime margaritas?
Yeah,
Salt on the
that's
rim,
pretty
no
much
salt.
regular.
What's
I'm,
the sitch?
I mean, I like it all. I think, I say margaritas. We were also doing daiquiris, strawberry daiquiris with the same methodology. Get like some frozen strawberries, the tube of daiquiris, get some light rum.
Oh,
I mean, I was fucking living in a beach on my mind, man.
you guys
I
ran
was
out of umbrellas,
floating.
didn't you? You ran out of umbrellas for the drinks eventually.
that was the real problem with the supply chain. The grocery store stopped stocking the tiny little umbrellas. That's when I stopped drinking. I just wasn't
It
able to do it.
wasn't
I
the
won't
yeast
do it without the
infection all
fucking
over the
umbrella.
body. It was the I can't
Yeah,
put an
no, no,
umbrella in
no.
here. Damn it.
I'm done. I'm going straight edge.
No, I'm not laughing at straight edge. Sorry.
No, no,
Anyway,
no. It's very serious.
so let's. If Brett wasn't doing Pallbearer, if Pallbearer never kind of came into Brett's life, what would you be up to, or what
I'd probably
passions
be
or stuff would you
fucking
be into?
6 feet in the fucking ground. I mean, realistically, uh, yeah. I mean, like I kind of went all in. I put all my chips into being a musician, and uh, that's like all I ever really intended to do. And when we started the band, I was like kind of a fuck and didn't really have like much of a vision of the future. I was like fully intended to be dead by 30, if not earlier. So I like there was no long term, I was like just kind of a fucked up kind of person. Um, so I mean, realistically, probably dead. I don't know, or working at a selling insurance. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what everyone
I,
does.
I don't know. The old fallback. Who knows, man? Probably work at a restaurant, realistically, or a bar.
Hmm. That would be. I mean, that's a job.
It's a job.
People do it. It is needed to be done.
I'll probably be doing that soon anyway, just because I fucking need some extra dough. So,
Uh, not laughing at that. Sorry, but yeah. So like, speaking of which, not speaking of which, you needing dough, but speaking of like, doing this for such a long period of time, did you ever think that you guys, back in the early mid 2000s when you guys were just starting out and just starting to write music and stuff like that? Did you ever think like, yeah, in 20 years or so, we'll be right here doing the same things, doing these tours, releasing more records, gaining fans, gaining an audience?
no, not at all. I mean, we expected. I mean, we tried. We just were going to try to make a record.
Was that the original goal of the
Um,
group? Just like, hey, let's just combine a couple songs together and put it out, and then what happens, happens.
well, we had a record. We knew it was a record. Like it was. We had a bunch of other songs in our early, formation period that we cast aside or didn't finish or decided it wasn't the sound that we were going for. The 5 songs on our first album, once we, pinpointed what it was about the music that we were coming up with that like defined our like quote unquote sound. Um, once we honed in on that, like we spent a like insane amount of time on those songs, like because we weren't very good, and B we're still finding our way. Like
Yeah,
none of us were very good,
yeah.
so it takes a lot longer when you're not very good. And
It's true.
yeah, so we were just kind of figuring it out. But like we knew we had some good songs. We knew the songs were good, and then yeah, our goal was just record them, and we had already recorded the album when we got the deal with Profound Lore. We just made it on our own. We were gonna send it to labels and see who wanted to put it out, and we got lucky with Chris. Um, and yeah, our biggest future goal was to maybe tour Europe one day. So I was like, maybe we'll get to go to Europe, and that was as far as it went. So we got to do that pretty early, pretty quickly. And so after that, it's like, well, I guess we're a band. We should probably make more music.
Yeah. Was it always a goal to be like? I mean, granted, because when I was in a band, when I was a young lad, I obviously was in a. I'm not in a band currently, and I haven't been one in 20 years. But when I was, our goal was also just to. If we get to tour Europe, I think that's successful. Never
Mhm.
did, never got that chance, but you know, I do remember a time when like booking tours, it was kind of like a how do you become a professional touring band? And then it was like,
Yeah.
oh, you just do it. It's not like someone hands you everything. You just kind of do that. So like was that kind of the same for you all when you were like booking your first shows and stuff like that? Like you just kind of came to a realization like, oh, we just gotta hoof it ourselves and do everything ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it was entirely a just I have no care if I live or die, and I have literally nothing else. Like it's just all in, you know. Like this is it. This is what we're doing. We weren't making any money. Like I didn't give a fuck about anything. We were just getting absolutely fucking wasted every day. Um, so it was very much just like an extension of my lifestyle at the time, which was get wasted every day and party with your friends. So that's what we did on the road too. And it was very much a just like skin of our teeth sort of situation. Like we were not making any money. Sometimes we were barely making gas money, you know. Um, I, like I know like Joe was like selling off a bunch of his like personal belongings at one point just to fund like tours and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of record collections
So
go up for sale from bands. A lot of guys in bands are selling
record,
records all the time.
oh yeah, record collections and like rare scents and shit that he had that we had used in sports. Um, he had some stuff that's worth like five times the amount now.
Mm.
If you still had that shit, you could fund sell it now and fund a pallbearer tour. So, but no, like but I mean, we were all just kind of like, this is this is what we have an opportunity to do this, and like
Hmm.
people seem to like what we're making. So like, let's fucking do it.
Could Paul Bearer do that today? Start today and do the same thing? Do you think bands can do that today?
Oh, oh, can bands do it? Yeah, but I don't want. I fucking don't want to. I'm too old for that shit, man. I don't drink as much. I don't drink enough to do that anymore. Like you have to
Well,
be wasted,
let's
and
pretend Brett is early 20s, or late teens, early 20s. Brett starting Paul Bear in 2024. Do you think like bands can still have that mindset of like what bands did in the late 90s, early 2000s, or just like a lot of fuck it? Just because like financially, there was a lot more wiggle room, I would assume, back in 20, 25 years ago. Now everything is inflated, and costs and everything is much higher, and pays not much higher for a lot of these shows or royalties or anything like that in the music world. So do you think bands like it's harder for them currently than it was many, many years ago?
it depends on where your standards are. I think it's definitely harder financially,
Yeah.
but if you're willing to eat shit, and if you have the drive, then you can make it happen. I mean, granted, we were doing this in like 2011, 2012. It's not. I mean, things have changed quite a bit, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not 20 years ago. It's more like 12-ish years ago that we were getting started. Granted, in the last 5 years, things have gone to like through shit, but like if you're willing to sacrifice everything in your life, then yes. But if you're not, then maybe. But if you're not willing to just like eat total shit for a few years, then don't even waste your time. Like it's not. I mean, we're a like relatively big band, and we, I'm certainly well below the poverty line,
Yeah.
from the money that we make.
Yeah.
So don't expect like you have to need to be a musician. It has to embody everything that you desire, because otherwise it's just like the sacrifices that you make to do it are like too great to pursue it. I mean, if you want to do it for fun and go on some tours with your buds and lose money, you know,
Hey.
go for it.
Yeah.
You have a good time. But if you want to be like a professional band, you have to be extremely driven
Yeah.
and be willing to like make some real sacrifices. And you also have to get lucky. And also you have to be really like that's just dedicated, have the right guys, and you know, I was gonna say don't suck, but like there's plenty of bands that suck
Yeah.
that
You can
get big.
suck
I think
still.
it's just you
Yeah.
have to find an audience.
Yeah. Everything. And I try to tell artists, like people who draw or paint or do whatever like that. I have friends that draw and paint and this, that, the other, and some of them think they suck, and I'm like, you know what though? Like there are audiences for art that sucks on purpose. Like, you know what I mean? And
100%.
I'm not saying this your art sucks, but I'm like, there's an audience for everything, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
especially nowadays, I feel like with the internet, everyone is like, oh, I can just like this thing, and Basquiat, for instance. Some people think it's very, very, critically acclaimed art. Some people think it's like trash. So, and
Yeah.
to each his own. But
I
it,
mean, with the internet, your audience is literally everybody in the world with an internet connection.
yeah,
That's a lot of people, you know?
if the algorithm will
Somebody's
serve it
gonna
to
like it.
them, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, nowadays.
Well,
Come
Brett,
on, Tom, bring back MySpace. We
yeah,
need to get our old sports songs off there anyway.
and we need to change out our top 8 or 16 or
Yeah,
24 or whatever,
yeah. I'm not even friends with those people anymore.
right?
Damn it.
Oh, Brett, it's been a great little chat. I'm gonna let you get to sports. You got to get all that situated, but not before reminding everybody about the new record, Mind Burns Alive, coming out this Friday, May 17th on Nuclear Blast. You can go to the listening party May 16th at the Argenta Theater in Little Rock, Arkansas. But if you can't make that, you can also do the Bandcamp listening party. You're doing one of those as well, May 16th, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Your time, I think it's 3 p.m.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so that's on your Bandcamp page. You can RSVP. You can catch the boys out on tour all summer long with, like you said, Resin, Inter Arma, and Wake. And then later in this,
And the Keening.
yes, the
And the
Keening.
Keening.
Yes, I forgot that one. It's on the very bottom of the flyer here. Also, Europe with Baroness and Graveyard. Brett, any last words you want to say as you suck down some of that Butterfinger to help you with your weight issues?
Just say follow my recipe blog where I combine various milkshakes and margarita mixes into extra delicious and fattening concoctions.
It's called the
It's
upset stomach on the toilet.com
yeah, yeah.
blogspot.
Diarrhea delights. Blogspot. That poop.
We'll put it. The link is in the description. Make sure you visit, subscribe, hit a like, follow on that. Cool, Brett. Well, I'm glad that we had some back and forth on getting this together, but I'm glad we knocked it out today. And yeah, catch the guys out on tour. New album out this Friday. Brett, thanks you for your time. We appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, man. I had a good time.
And I'll let the commenters know to go light.
Yeah, tell them to goo easy on me.
You still going on the website. Love it. All
Oh
right.
yeah, dude. I've been going to Lambgoat since forever.
I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
continue to do so, even if they're bad mouthing you on there.
Yeah, that's part of the fun.
It is. Thank you for being such a roll with the punches kind of guy with that. So appreciate. I'm glad you can kind of understand and know what's going on in that comment section. But yeah, man. Again, appreciate the time and look forward to seeing you guys live in the near future.
Oh yeah, man. Thanks.